So today, the Path of Burning Steppes was released because the Lost Sector has these in rotation, and these exotics I anticipated to be pretty hard meta options. If not only, or for only the fact that people really dislike Stasis, and this is the only exotic in the game, or anything in the game, I think, really offering a resistance or counter to Stasis currently. So the perk here says, Firewalker Solar Final Blows periodically grant you an escalating bonus to weapon damage. You are harder to slow or freeze with Stasis, and when you break out, you take no damage from doing so, creating a burst of solar energy around yourself. So this exotic does quite a bit. As far as I know, I do not have Stasis unlocked on my Titan, but there's no thing here that indicates that it wouldn't work with Stasis, so I have reason to believe it does work with Stasis, and if you can confirm that, that'd be great. If I'm incorrect, let me know. But it seems as though this also can be used with Stasis. But my priority in this video is to go over essentially all of the mechanics of this exotic, because it does quite a bit. And we'll start off with the damage buff. So when you get a solar defeat, it seems to activate not every kill, but around every other solar kill. So you won't be getting it all the time, but it lasts for about 10 seconds. So we'll go here. We didn't get it on our first kill. And on our second one, we got the Firewalker damage buff, and that takes our damage to 108 from 90 on this 120 RPM hand cannon. So that should be a 20% damage boost for 10 seconds. But it doesn't really end there, which really shocked me, and I didn't see this really mentioned on the exotic. But when you get affected by Stasis, Jingle, if you want to throw a freeze at me, look at that, we get Firewalker. And even for the short freezes, we're going to talk about this later, but the burst effect still affects and damages everyone around me from a reasonable radius. So just for getting frozen, even with a short freeze, we're going to get a burst of damage around us and an AoE, and we're going to get a free 10-second damage boost. And we all know how powerful those are with the current meta champions, which is the 120 RPM hand cannon. So that is very strong already, and we haven't even gone through all the other functionality, which is incredible. So we have slow resist. This is actually a part of the exotic I really like. It actually does resist slow. As soon as if you throw a shuriken at me here, or actually, yeah, a shuriken, we'll see that the duration, that was with Durance, by the way. He has Durance on. I'll make sure I'll double check here and show you guys. The Whisper of Durance. It does decrease the duration down to 3 seconds from 5 seconds. And when you're not using Durance, it still does reduce the slow duration by 1 second. But again, with Durance, which is your worst case scenario, that's what the majority of hunters that are slowing you the most are going to be using. At least I find that it does reduce that duration. So if you want to throw another shuriken, we can show that again. Yep. So again, only a 3-second slow, and you can see that the amount of stacks you get for being slowed, that will ultimately result in you potentially getting frozen, or also less. Normally you get 40 stacks from being slowed. Now you're getting 20. And on that note, if you actually throw a dust field at me, we'll show that the dust field also does apply less stacks of slow. So normally it does 5 stacks of slow per tick. Now it's doing 3 stacks of slow per tick. So less overall stacks of slow. So harder time being frozen from the slow stacks, resulting in a freeze. Now we can talk about the freeze resist. So it does mention something about not being able to be frozen as much. I believe that just pertains mainly to the slow stacks, because what I noticed is that it doesn't actually change the duration of your freeze when you are frozen. So Jingle, if you want to short freeze me here. So that's still a 2-second short freeze. That is the normal amount of freeze. And then if you want to go for a long freeze quick, look at that, it's still 5 seconds. So your freeze duration is not changed. We also found, at least from what we could tell, the damage of the freeze, or the damage you take while being frozen, that damage bonus isn't affected either. So the traits of you being in the freeze don't seem affected. They seem relatively unaffected. However, when you are frozen, as we saw, if you want to do a short freeze again, you get this this blast of energy that happens even for a short freeze, even when you don't do the breakout animation. As soon as you're out and released from the freeze, you emit this AoE effect that is pretty generous. You can see we found it to be nearly 9 meters approximately. Not for full damage, of course, but still dealing damage to people around you. And again, in the 120 meta, where any little bit of damage can result in a 2-tap, that is still impactful. Or even extending your shotgun's 1-hit kill range. In this range, it's still very impactful. Because a lot of the time you're going to get frozen and then they're going to try and rush you for that short freeze and capitalize on the short freeze. You're just going to be released naturally and you're going to damage them back, which can result in you getting the kill. So that's really, really strong that activates even on a short freeze. But you can show here, Jingo, if you want to come towards me, we'll show like the max damage. Just long freeze me quick. And I'll break out here. And there we go. It does 78 damage. That is the maximum damage we saw. And then obviously that goes down to about 50 damage or so at the outer rim, around 9 meters approximately, give or take, which is pretty insane. You'll also notice that we don't take any sort of breakout damage. So again, if you long freeze me, there is no health penalty on your breakout. We can simply break out ASAP, deal damage to them back while not taking any damage other than the damage they might deal to us while being frozen. So again, that's very, very strong. So that's all the functionality essentially of this exotic. Again, this is the new Titan boots, the Path of Burning Steps. Some quick opinions on this exotic. I think this is most definitely going to be meta. The fact that you get a free damage buff simply because someone used Stasis on you is incredibly strong as is. And then it has all the slow resist, and slow is a massive problem in the Crucible right now. People want the duration of slow to be lower, and I would agree with that. And this is the only thing in the game that's gonna let you do that. So that is incredibly strong. What I don't like about this exotic is it has a quality of similar to OEM, where you're being punished for interacting. You're being punished for playing the game. And there's an aspect of that I would say to myself, well, that's interesting because it's going to turn people off of Stasis because they have to respect this exotic. When they see this exotic, they know that if they use Stasis on you, they're going to have a harder time converting because of that damage boost, and they're going to give you a sizable damage boost for a long period of time. So you would have to respect that normally. And that's actually interesting, I think. The problem mainly, the flaw with this exotic is, I'm assuming, because it doesn't mention it, but if it does work with Stasis, that throws that out the window. That doesn't mean it's a Stasis counter anymore. It just means it makes your Stasis better while turning other people's off and making them switch off of theirs while you get to play yours. You know, that's kind of ridiculous, I think. I think if this exotic is tied to light subclasses only, I wish I had a way to confirm this at the very moment. But if this was tied to just light subclasses, we'd have, although I still think it's too powerful personally, we'll have an interesting dynamic where people are going to opt out of playing Stasis because they need to respect this exotic. But now I think we're going to get full power behemoths running around, one of the already best classes in the game right now, having better Stasis because they're the only ones that can actively resist it while using it. And to me, that is very degenerate and takes this exotic from what could be a cool look at a counter, and I'd hope maybe seeing this on other characters, to something that becomes, I don't know, kind of degenerate while we wait for appropriate balancing. And even then, even past that, I think that even if Stasis was in a good place, and if Stasis was in a reasonably balanced place, the fact that I think your Stasis, which is already just by concept very strong, is just going to be better than someone else's, and they're punished for interacting with you, it's very problematic. Again, we've seen this issue with OEM in the past. I know everyone hates Stasis, but I don't think we should let that slide for this regardless. And that, again, could get very frustrating and degenerate, having someone, again, if this works with Stasis, running Stasis against you, and you being punished for using your Stasis against them. And right now, I hate to say it, Stasis is one of the only good counters to Stasis. I also anticipate that Chaos Reach might see a spike in usage and Top Tree Dawnblade, because those are the two best classes at resisting Stasis at the moment. Even though Top Tree Dawnblade did get that kind of nerf, you can't Icarus dodge while slowed anymore, I still think it is one of the best choices. I expect people, especially Chaos Reach, to be using that more than ever, because people are going to be forced off of Stasis classes to combat behemoths with this. and not going to be able to play Stasis classes much effectively back at it. So this is interesting. I think it's potentially quite concerning, although a cool concept. We'll see how it plays out, I guess, in the meta, and we'll revisit it. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Take it easy.